Good morning. Good morning. We are now live on YouTube and on Facebook. So we welcome everyone who's logging on and joining us on new platforms. Welcome to another session of daily learning and lockdown inspiration. Great to see people logging on as we speak. Thank you very much for joining us. Please share with us your comments in the chat. We love to know you're with us. We love to know you're here. Thank you very much. I will acknowledge those who have acknowledged us. Those who are logging on, please share with us your greetings. Thank you very much. Wonderful crowd coming online here today. So beautiful. Thank you. I'm going to welcome you personally here. I see comments coming through. So let me say hello to everyone. Good morning to Sherilyn Diamond, Manfred Kalmik, Anne Hack, Tracy Mindel, Ruth Kaplan, Helen Feinstein, and Brian, Simeon Angel, Marlene Scher, Norman Stein, Wayne Miller, welcome back, David Ginsburg, Boker Tov, and hello to everyone. And on YouTube, just 1 second. And on YouTube, welcome to Ronnie Kotkas on YouTube, Ian Clemenson, Shelley Smith. Good morning, Stan Brask from Raylene and Stan, Lionel Rubin, Bokatov, Dave Block. Good to see you all here. David Ginsburg, Charmaine Shatkin, Jaime and Linda Drew. Wonderful, 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 wonderful. Welcome back to another morning of daily learning here. Good to see you all. Nice to have you all here. Thank you for joining us. We're over 30 students, 30 listeners and viewers. Felicia Jenks, thank you. We're over 30 now. So wonderful. We're on our way to 40. Great to see such a great crowd in the morning wanting to join on for some inspiration. Jonathan Zimbler, welcome. Nice to have you here. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your greetings. If you're still joining, please do comment. We're going to start in about a minute or so. So just settle in, get yourself a cup of coffee, cup of tea, something to eat, something to drink. And we're going to get going with another fascinating discussion of some learning, some content. Arnold Orkin, good morning. Bernice Krause, Boker Tov, thank you. Janice Leibovitz, wonderful, wonderful. I see some more people logging on YouTube. If you're one of our YouTubers, please do comment in the chat that you're with us. If you're on Facebook, please can you like this video? Just beneath your screen, you can like the video and then share it so other people can see what you're up to. Maura Dworkin's just logged on to YouTube and given us some good morning greetings. Thank you very much. Wonderful. Thank you very much. And welcome, welcome. I'm just going to wait a few more seconds to allow for people to log on. Please hang in there. Stay with us. Like the video. Let other people know what you're up to. And we're going to get going in just a moment. Right. A fascinating morning. I want to dedicate today's shir in the memory of Rivka Rachel Bat Meir, whose yahrzeit is tonight. I thank Lionel and Louise Rubin for your generous contribution of tzedakah to the shul. Thank you. In her merit, we'll be giving tzedakah and learning. Rivka Rachel Bat Meir. Thank you to you. Anybody else that would like to commemorate or celebrate special occasions on our shir on the daily morning, you're more than welcome to let me know in advance, and I'll be more than happy to include our community and everyone else that's learning and our share. We've got close to 40 students here today. Where do we get that on a normal year, on a normal day? Hilly Lipworth, Aline Udolovitz, welcome. Where do we get 40 students in a room on a daily basis at 10:30 in the morning? Never. It's impossible. Who can come out to sit around the table? So early in the morning or mid-morning while we're working. So this is one of the silver linings of lockdown. So we wish Arichas Yomim to the Reubens, and let's get going. All right. So as you all know, there is great debate taking place and has been in terms of lockdown, easing the lockdown. Robert Levy on YouTube, good morning. I see people still logging on. We've now reached over 40 people logged on here. Jenny Lichtenstein, thank you. We're over 40 people logged on here this morning. So there's been great debates about lockdown and easing the lockdown. And that's been on a government level and a health level and a community level, especially as the president announced the other week about the allowing religious services to come together. And synagogues, churches, and mosques were allowed to open, obviously with up to 50 participants. It's been a debate ever since, and it continues to be a debate among the professionals, among the doctors, among the leaders of the community. And I'll get onto that in a moment. One thing I wanted to highlight is what I think hasn't been celebrated enough, and maybe we can start the trend now. We take it for granted that our president and government acknowledges spiritual service and prayer as an essential service. I haven't seen this celebrated enough. We've all been involved in community notifications and updates and debates. As a rabbi too, I've been in these conversations as well. Should we follow the president's announcement, or should we not follow the president's announcement? Do we open our doors? Do we not open our doors? These are all very, very important debates. But before we get to the debate, first we need to acknowledge that the president announced spiritual prayer service as being essential. And that's something for us to celebrate here. We take it for granted that our government respects our religion, that our government respects Judaism and synagogues and prayer and service. That's something to celebrate. Not all governments would appreciate the sanctity of a synagogue, the sanctity of prayer, or the freedom of religion. And I think we need to pause for a moment, reflect for a moment, and celebrate that which we have here in South Africa. The fact that our government and our president has publicly announced that synagogue life, spiritual life, prayer, and services is part of essential services. That itself, even if we don't get back to the shuls just yet, that itself is something for us to celebrate. That's my personal view. If you have yours, please share them on either the chat on YouTube or Facebook. I'd be happy to listen to you and engage with you. Selwyn Trigger, Shalom Trigger, good to have you here. Fega Sega, Daryl and Shelley Smith. Wonderful to have you all here online with us. We're over 40. We're close to 45 students and listeners and viewers, and I'm sure there'll be more coming on later who normally watch this later on in the day. Donna Lovitz, good morning. Thank you for joining. So that's the first point I wanted to start with, is the celebration of prayer, celebration of tefillah. Now, the second point is that there's been debates. Ever since the announcement of the president, there's been debates, among the rabbis and the Jewish Board of Deputies and the doctors. Is the time right? Maybe it's too early. Let's hold back. Let's wait. Let's watch. Let's wait for the curve to bend the curve before we go back to the shuls. I'm not going to spend the time now on this platform debating this or discussing this. I don't know right here for our daily learning to discuss that. But I want to share with you maybe another debate that we could have relating to the return to shuls. And I actually had a conversation with a rabbi overseas who received an email or an email communication from a lady in the community. And it was in particular in Israel, so maybe that gives context to the conversation. And there, a lady from the community wrote an email to the rabbi, because in Israel, they're returning to the shuls. So because they're returning to the shuls, obviously lifestyles are now changing again. Here in South Africa, we're still behind. But in Israel, they're returning to the shuls. So her letter to the rabbi was as follows. I am terribly upset that the rules are now changing, that people are returning to the shuls. The reason why I'm upset is not for health reasons or medical reasons. It's not my role to comment onto whether it's healthy or not healthy to return to the shuls. My reason for commenting, if I'm being upset, is because I have appreciated having my husband davening at home with me every morning and every afternoon. Hey, interesting, right? I've appreciated seeing him wrap up in his talis and tefillin. I've appreciated the atmosphere that he has brought to the home when he gets together, when he settles down in the morning for Shachrit. Maybe he's been logging on to some Zoom calls for Mincha Mariv. We at Siddim, many of you know, have a daily Mincha Mariv virtual service. It's not a minyan per se, but we've got over close to 25 people every evening logging on and joining together every morning and every evening to daven Mincha Mariv together. But that's done in the home. So the children see it, the wife sees it. And this particular woman was writing to the rabbi and saying, I'm devastated that this is all coming to an end. I would love this to continue, where my husband can daven Shachris at home and Mincha Mariv at home. Just on a humorous note, I heard from one woman who said to me that now I have figured out how long or how short it takes to daven Mincha Mariv. What she meant was that her husband was going to shul, and for some reason he was gone for an hour and a half, or two. And she always thought, well, that's how long the services take, or that's how long the shir takes, or that's how long it takes to be at shul for Mincha Mariv. Now seeing him around the home, and she realizes now that Mincha just takes 10 to 12 minutes. Mariv takes 10 minutes. She's laughing to herself that, gosh, Corona lockdown has taught her some things. That sometimes the husbands go to shul to hang out with the boys and to socialize, and they sort of dawdle and they linger. And what's supposed to be, a half an hour, 45-minute service takes an hour and a quarter, an hour and a half. That's just a side note, more of a humorous anecdote. But that's the question that the particular woman was writing to her rabbi in Israel to say, so I don't want my husband now to leave and to go back to shul. I want this to continue. Why can't he continue davening at home? Why must he return to the shul? Is it so critical? Is it so necessary? So that's the question I wanted to delve into today, because that could be our own debate. Let's leave the legalities and the medical discussions to the professionals, doctors, rabbis, lay leaders. Let's discuss ourselves about this question. This question, can I just daven at home? Why not continue that? It's been enjoyable till now. It's brought some positivity into the home because the home sees me davening. So maybe the home benefits, the wife, the children benefit. Can that continue? Can that continue going forward? Must we return to the shuls? Or mustn't we? And we meaning the community, or we as individuals? Maybe as individuals, I'd prefer to stay at home and daven at home. I think it ties into the theme of these weeks of the Torah portion that we're reading about the Mishkan. We're reading about the construction of the tabernacle and the need for service inside the Mishkan. So you know that our shul, in a way, is a mini Mishkan, a mini temple, a mini Bet HaMikdash. And so it's a relevant discussion that connects to this time period as well as we read these parashiyot. So let me welcome everyone who's here today. We have amazing, blown away. We've got over 45 to 50 students here this morning that are online with us, listening live on Facebook and YouTube. So I welcome one and all. If you haven't yet shared with us your personal greetings in the chat, I invite you to do so. Just write a comment. Good morning. Hello. How are you? Or if you want to engage, put your comments or questions into the chat box, and I'd like to, engage with you personally on this. So one thing this has done is it's made us think. It's made us think about our shuls. It's made us think about our relationship to our shuls, and then the need and the necessity, and to ask, what is the purpose? What's wrong with home? Before I get into the actual, debate itself, it's quite fascinating that what the Corona lockdown has done is it's made us think. Sometimes the heart, distance makes the heart grow fonder. And sometimes being away makes us think more. We take things for granted. We take our spouse for granted. We take our family for granted. We take our children for granted. And the moment we're away from them, suddenly distance makes the heart grow fonder, and we start thinking about them and how precious they are to us. And what this has done during this lockdown period, ironically, it's made us think about this more. You know, we can't wait for the day to get back into the shul and greet the community and meet the community, you know, even on a social level. But even to be able to daven in a minyan and answer Baruch Hu and Kaddish and Kedusha, that's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing when that happens. Obviously, recognizing that davening at home had a special touch to it as well. And we'll get back to that discussion and debate, home versus shul. But just to mention how this lockdown period has really made us think. Just to say that shuls being closed, both here in South Africa and across the world, hasn't happened in history. When's the last time all shuls around the world were closed at the same time? I'm not saying all. There were some minyanim going on, like our own Chevra Kadisha as well, had a minyan going all the time. But it's a phenomenon that's beyond logic. It's a phenomenon that's really from above. And in a way, maybe here to make us reflect. And that's what I'm doing today, because I think God has sent us a lesson. Stop and reflect. That's what you need to do, because you've been sent away from your shuls, not just because Corona sent you away from the shuls, but because he wants you to reflect and think about these things and talk about these things. And this is just the beginning of the conversation. But why not have the conversation? So let me just touch upon, again, before going into the debate itself, let's just talk about that idea of where we are right now and where we find ourselves right now. We find ourselves in lockdown. We still find ourselves in lockdown, and it makes us reflect. So in the reading of the last few weeks, we've been speaking about the family of Leviim and the service of the Leviim in the sanctuary. And there's two particular families that I want to focus on, which I think are relevant to our conversation. And that is Gershon and Kahat. Gershon carried the curtains of the tabernacle of the Mishkan, and Kahat carried the actual vessels themselves. They carried them on their shoulders. They carried the kalim, the vessels, the aroin and the shulchan and the table and the menorah and the candelabra. That was the job of the family of Kahat. And the commentaries tell us, look at the names of these two families and analyze those names, and you'll see an important lesson. The family of Gershon comes from the word gerushin, which means divorce. Okay? And that's why they carried the curtains, because the curtains meant the protection around the sanctuary. It was what protected, it divorced the sanctuary from the rest of the world. And that was the role of Gershon. Gershon meaning gerushin, divorce, and that was their role of carrying the curtains. The family of Kahat were responsible for carrying the kalim. Now the word Kahat means the gathering in. V'lo yikat amim, says the Torah. It's a gathering in of the nations. It's a gathering in. And that's why they carried the kalim, the vessels, because they brought the vessels into the sanctuary. Now, it's interesting. Look at the chronological order here. Gershon is the older son. Kahat is the younger son. The Torah is telling us, and maybe this relates to where we find ourselves right now. Sometimes we need a divorce. Chas v'chalila, not the divorce we know of in marriage, but sometimes we need the separation led by Gershon, in order to appreciate what we really have. In order to appreciate the Aron, the Ark, and the Shulchan, and the Menorah, and all the beautiful kalim and the vessels of the sanctuary, first you need to distance yourself. Because when you're in it the entire time, you take it for granted. Just like we take our family sometimes for granted, or our spouse sometimes for granted. And the moment we're distant from them, that's when we start to appreciate them more. So too when it comes to the sanctuary and the Bet HaMikdash and the temple and our shuls. Gershon and then Kahat. Separation and divorce, and then the gathering in. Because when you have the separation, when you have the quarantine, right, the lockdown, that's a separation. When we're unable to access our shuls, that's the separation of Gershon, right, who puts up fences and curtains in quarantine. And the more that happens, or when that happens, it forces us to reflect, to think through things, and then it brings us closer. And then we move into the family of Kahat, and we bring in the Aron, we bring in the Shulchan, we bring in the table, and then we're ready for Shul. So if we don't spend time reflecting on this during this lockdown period, we've wasted an opportunity. If we move back into the Shul and it's all the same as the norm and nothing's ever changed, then we've lost an opportunity. Being in the mode of Gershon, of separation and quarantine, is really there to get us into the mode of Kahat, of the gathering in and the respect and the sensitivity to what we're trying to accomplish within the shul space. So with that in mind, I come back to our original question and the letter that the rabbi in Israel received from the woman in the home who said, I wanted this to continue. I wanted my husband to continue davening Shachris here and Mincha Maariv here. Why must you go back to the shuls and take it away from our family, from our homes? So I don't know if any of you have any thoughts on this. What's your thoughts on this? How's your davening been at home over these 8-9 weeks of lockdown? Maybe you could share them with us on the chat in Facebook or YouTube. If you're still joining, I still see people are joining us. We're over 45 people here today. So if you have any thoughts on this, of how your davening has been going, if you have been davening and how's it been going, and versus your experience in the shul, I'd love to hear from you. You know, let's share, let's engage, chat to us, talk to us. Let's hear what your thoughts are. Do you want to leave your home? Do you want to go back into the shul? Let's put aside health concerns for now. Do you want to go back into the shul and daven back at shul? You know, I'm sure you do, but let's understand why. What's wrong with home? Has it not been working at home? Or has it been working at home, davening? And as a result, you'd rather daven at home, maybe most of the time. So that's my question for today. And I'll share with you 2 thoughts about that. And maybe you can contribute to the conversation as we go along. So 2 thoughts about the importance of the shul. And again, I have reflected on this during this time period because that's what God has given us. He wants us to think about these things. No one's taking away the fact that having family members davening around the home creates a very special environment around the home. No one's going to debate that. No one's going to debate that. But let's be honest, that could be accomplished in other ways. You don't necessarily have to have Shachris, Mincha, and Maariv in your home in order to create that atmosphere that we've created during this quarantine period. You could have, shiurim or chavrutot or learning or shiurim or discussions or tehillim groups. There's other ways of creating that atmosphere. Let's not convince ourselves that dafka specifically through Shachris, Mincha, Maariv in the home, that's how we create that environment. That's not the only way we create that environment. But when it comes to prayer, to davening itself, to the connection to Hashem, to meditation and contemplation itself, let's discuss that. So I don't want to discuss right now the atmosphere it creates at home because, okay, now I see comments coming through. Let me just finish this thought. I'm not going to debate now. Okay, let's see. Helen Feinstein writes, Brian says he loves davening at home, but misses davening with a minyan at shul. Right, exactly. So that's good. Linda Drew, davening as usual, enjoying home shiurim. Only want to go to shul from a social aspect. Good, Linda. We're gonna talk about your point in a moment. Is shul only there for a social aspect? We'll come back to that. Stan Brask writes on YouTube, we have grown in learning at home. That's true. We are forced to teach ourselves by focusing. We have learned so much. Oh boy. I've just logged out. My phone is just logged out of Facebook here. Man. Okay, so give me a moment to the YouTubers. I'm going to log back onto Facebook. It looks like they've lost me. Okay. Sorry. Just give me a second, guys. Okay, we've got 20. Hold on 1 second here. So I'm just going to wait a moment to allow for people to log back on, because unfortunately, my first one, we had a nice crowd there and they're all gone. That's devastating. Hold on 1 second for us as the others log back on. I want to finish this point. So we'll see now what people do once I log back on. Okay, I see David Seif has joined us on YouTube. Apologies, guys. I see everyone's logging back on. Apologies that we were knocked out of the session. So let's just allow for people to come back on. Thank you. I see people are joining now. Sorry, guys. The numbers are picking up. Okay, stay on with us. Stay on with us. I see Brian Owen is commenting. Give me a second here. We'll come to Brian's comment in a moment. Okay, where is everyone? Facebookers, are you with us? Looks like we've logged out. Okay, I'm gonna wrap up this point, and those people who aren't on can listen to us at a later point in time. Apologies for that. For some reason, my Facebook just died. So, Brian Owen writes, bringing Shekhinah into the home in a more tangible way, maybe. But Kaddish, yes, we're not saying Kaddish, exactly. Prayer is different connection, more personal. One-on-one with Hashem. I assume you mean in the home, Brian. That in the home, you're one-on-one with Hashem. That could be. I get that. Okay, it looks like people are battling still to come back online on Facebook. But I do want to hold on to our YouTubers, so just stay there for a moment, and the numbers are picking up. If anyone has any more comments on this topic while we're waiting for the Facebookers to load and to come back on with us, thank God YouTube seems to be stable here. So any more comments on the prayer services, davening services, your experience of davening in the shul versus davening at home, where you've benefited, where you've grown, what you appreciate more. So I just want to share a comment on this. I think it's important to keep in mind that, yes, the atmosphere is definitely enhanced. There's an enhanced spiritual atmosphere when we daven at home. But as I said, we don't necessarily need home to do that. We don't need davening to do that. We could be learning or having a Tehillim group, a learning group of some sort to create the vibe at home. We can't say that let's stay at home, let's remain at home and daven at home forever, because it brings a beautiful atmosphere to the home. That can't be the only reason to keep davening at home. So for those who've joined in, I shared a letter that a rabbi got a colleague of mine in Israel, when he got a letter from his wife, from a woman in the community saying, I don't want my husband to leave home. He's been davening at home, Shachris Mincha Maariv, and it's really created a beautiful atmosphere at home. I don't want him to go back to the shul. What would you answer to that? What would you answer to that? How would you respond? If you were a community leader, if you were a rabbi or rebbitzin, what would you answer? When a woman in the community says, I prefer having my husband at home, davening at home, it's brought such beautiful light and positivity to the home. Lionel Rubin says he can't learn Torah at home. So Lionel, good point. You can't learn Torah at home. I'd like to know what you mean by that. Why can't you learn Torah at home? You could have shiurim at home, but maybe you can't focus. Is that what you're referring to? Shelley Smith. Daryl takes time out for work so that we can be inspired together on a daily basis. Exactly. So Shelley's sort of strengthening the question is you're learning together at home and inspiring each other. Since when did you have the chance to actually sit and learn together? During the day, you don't normally do that. Lionel Rubin says you read. So you're distinguishing, Lionel, between reading and learning Torah. That's what it sounds like. So Torah learning, you mean obviously text-based Torah learning, in a chavruta or a shir, and you're referring to more lighter type of reading. Good point. We've got over 40 students here between Facebook and YouTube who are logged on together with us for this discussion of home versus shul. I see. Lionel means the laning of the Torah, not necessarily the learning of the Torah. Good point. Thank you, Lionel. That's true. We can't lane from the Torah at home. Good point. So that's the discussion of today. I want to continue this conversation into tomorrow as well, because I really want to unpack this. On the one hand, davening at home may be something we've been enjoying. It's something that brings a warm atmosphere into the home. That people benefit, the wife, the children, everyone benefits from the davening at home. On the other hand, don't we want to go back to our shuls? We want to go back to our shuls, don't we? And what's the purpose of that? Linda shared before that going back to the shuls is for social reasons. Well, is that the only reason we want to get back to the shul, for social reasons? That's an important question. I'll come back to that comment in a moment. Let's just see from here. Daryl and Shelley Smith share on YouTube that for me, Shabbos has been far more relaxing. Spent more time learning Judaism in one form or another. As Daryl says that. Shelley appreciates that, but misses shul from a different dimension. We're separate this AM. Oh, I see. Okay, Daryl and Shelley separate. So on the one hand, it's been more relaxing. Spent more time learning Judaism in one form or another. Good point. But we miss shul also. Robert Levy says sometimes dangerous to stay home. People don't want to go back. Same as school. Longer at home, harder to go back. Exactly my question, Maureen and Robert. Exactly my question. We've been davening at home now for 8-9 weeks. Maybe we become comfortable with that. Are we now comfortable with it? Or do we see benefit or more gain in davening at home than going to shul? So do we really want to go back to shul? I was trying to comment on Linda's comment on Facebook, where Linda said earlier that for her, going back to shul is for a social reason. She wants to get back to shul for a social reason. You should know, if we were medical doctors or rabbis, obviously I'm a rabbi, but I'm not discussing this discussion or debate right now on a go back or not go back level. But these comments are very critical, because if Linda says that her entire purpose to go back to shul, not entire, I won't say that, Linda, but one of her big motivations of getting back to shul is for social reasons, that's important for doctors to know. That's important for rabbis to know. Because that adds to the equation of, are we going back or we're not going back? When do we go back and how fast do we go back? It's all part of the same question. But I'm going to wrap up now. Thank you so much for your comments. I want you to come back tomorrow as we explore this further as to what is the need for the shul. If davening's been working for us at home and been adding so much to the vibe at home, then why must we go to shul? Let's just continue davening at home. Ian Clemenson says, thank you, Ian. We won't have the morning 10:30 sessions if we're back at shul. Yeah, Ian. Well, I did say that I'd love to continue this daily morning sessions in some way following lockdown, because your engagement, still 35 to 40 people logged on right now, your engagement has been really inspiring for me. So I do want to explore continuing these sessions in some way or another following lockdown. But your point is right. David Seif, on Shabbos morning, we read the Parsha and Haftarah translations. I assume you mean at home. You've been reading translations of the Parsha and Haftarah. Maybe you're adding to the question that when you're at home, you're doing more than you were doing at shul, because you're able to read more and learn more and understand more. Okay, so the question is a good question. We're going to have our own debates. Let's leave the debate of the rabbis and the medical doctors and community leaders to themselves. We're going to have our own debate. Shul, davening at home versus davening at shul. What's our desire? What's our aspiration? What's our wants and our prayers and our wishes? I see here, Brian Owen says, nobody takes my seat at home. That's a good point, Brian. Obviously, that's on a humorous note. True. Hilly Lipworth, unfortunately, you're not commenting in the right Facebook class. Our first class bombed out, so we had to start in a second class, a second room. But anyway, we're going to wrap up now. Thank you all for joining us. We will continue this conversation tomorrow in good health, please God. Same place, same time, 10:30 on YouTube and Facebook. In the meantime, have a wonderful day ahead. Keep safe and keep sane and keep spiritual. Stan Braz, one last comment. I take time off from work already to attend this shir. That's an answer to Ian Clemenson. That even when we go back to shul or go back to work, maybe this has taught us how to take time off for our learning discussion every day, like Stan Braz writes in his comments. Have a wonderful day and all the best.